Because I couldn't remember the changes to my own format, we now have skills and class abilities to talk about today. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here to bring you the second part of our look at the first edition Pathfinder Samurai. Things are definitely a little bit of a mess, not for the least of which is the fact that I forgot my own format, and now we're covering skills here along with class abilities. That's left us with a lot to cover, and we won't be throwing feats in here, but that will get lumped in as we will be covering orders next episode. So orders, feats, things like that, those will all get covered there in their own separate video. Today is just focused on skills and class abilities. However, there's a couple of things to touch upon. First, commenter Adrian Ennis, I hope I pronounced your last name right. I had 3 different variations pop up in my head. I hope I picked the right one. Pointed out that the thumbnail for the first episode had an error, listing it still as the summoner. That needs to be corrected. A little bit of a error on my part, but still, thank you very much. Also, Captain Crank, regular viewer and commenter, pointed out that pumping up charisma in favor of intelligence is, at least at a mathematical level, not the ideal thing for you to do, and yeah, he's right. Overall, I'd say anything that Captain Crank comments in the down below the videos is reliable, accurate, and great information to have, and I agree. But, you know, I'm not looking to build the most 100% effective builds, but still, this is overall an effective build, and it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. The class certainly has its own issues, which we'll come to shortly, but yeah, in this instance, I wanted to do something that just focused on maybe just having a touch of charisma there, because depending on the array of stats, the different class abilities and feats that you select, those can all come together and coalesce into a certain kind of personality that you roleplay out for your character. And in this instance, I'm picturing somebody maybe is not the brightest because they're inherently dumb or necessarily less intelligent, but they're more just falling in step with the code of ethics that they live by, those samurai ethics, the decorum, the presentation, the politeness. That's where their charisma comes in observance of those traditions and how they present themselves to others, how they represent themselves and the lord that they've sworn fealty to. That's kind of what comes through there, not because they're necessarily dumb, but they just don't bring it out or exercise it as much because, one, they're sword arm first and foremost, or bow arm possibly, but then they also lean into representing the decorum and formalities of the samurai. Not that there aren't intelligent samurais, that's just kind of what I pictured for this particular build. It's been a little bit of a running theme I've had lately, but anyways, before we get into everything on offer for you here today, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down there to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now let's actually get the die rolling here and start taking a look at your skills. And to start us off, the samurai actually has the bluff skill as a class option for them. Now, this works off of charisma, which is not a terrible stat for us. This is what you do to misdirect and deceive others. Doesn't sound fitting for the honorable samurai, but bear in mind that you can use bluff for feinting, and martial arts is built on deception, so this does actually fit in a couple of different ways. The next skill is Climb, which works off of strength and is a good stat for us. This lets you climb and clamber over obstacles of all sorts. Even better if you have rope, a grappling hook, climbing pythons, things like that. However, this is worth 1 skill point at most. 1 will actually get you everything that you need in order to overcome most of the early level climbing challenges, because unless you're in a low or no magic campaign, you're going to have magical items, magical abilities necessary to help you circumvent those challenges. Now, following that, though, we have Diplomacy, which is actually a pretty good face skill. Now, Charisma is not pumped up super high in this instance, but even still, this is going to be valuable for any face and is also thematically on point when it comes to the samurai. Much like Handle Animal, another charisma-based skill, this is what allows you to train your mount, other animals, etc., things like that. And given that you have a mount as a class ability, this fits in pretty nicely. Bear in mind, not only were samurai archers first and foremost before they became swordsmen, as a general rule throughout their history, they were also mounted combatants. They would ride on their horses, firing arrows, leveling their spears, or their yari, and then scything through the ashigaru with their katana afterwards. So this actually fits pretty well. Then we have Intimidate, which is just a classic thing for the samurai to do. This is another great face skill, and it is useful with certain feats, which altogether blends to be very thematically on point, having intimidating displays of their lethal prowess with the sword in close combat, or the naginata, or the yari, or any number of other weapons that they might bring to bear against their foes. Oh man, if they went with the iron or brass shod great clubs. I forget what they called them right off the top of my head, but those clubs were associated with the Oni, demons from Japanese folklore. So absolutely, the kanabo, that's what it was. Anyways, moving on from there before I ramble down any other rabbit holes, we have the ride skill, which works off of your dex. You ride, maneuver, and perform stunts from your mount. Definitely essential if you're going to be leaning into being a mounted archer. However, that's going to take a little bit of homebrewing to fix up, which again, we'll get into shortly. Then we have the sense motive skill, working off of your wisdom. This allows you to detect deception or subtle messages communicated indirectly via body language, or if you're reading between the lines to really pick up on what somebody else is saying. Definitely another useful skill for being kept in the loop and also doing things that are outside of just combat, which is good for any class, any player. Lastly, we have the swim skill. Like climb, this is only going to be worth 1 point needed at most. The caveat to this being, if you're in any aquatic themed campaign, whether you're on the ocean, in a lake, boat going campaigns, anything on the high seas, you're gonna want to pump up the swim skill much more. Even with access to all the different class abilities, spells, magic items, all it's going to take is some very nasty wizard to throw on a reverse gravity, use dispel magic to nullify a lot of your magic advantages, and send you careening to the bottom of the ocean in your armor and really, really messing with you. But, you know, well, I say reverse gravity wouldn't do that, it'd send you up in the air. But either way, point being, swim skill in that instance is definitely a must-have skill. But for the most part, in most campaigns, you're not going to have to worry about it. Then going on from there, we get to the actual chassis for the samurai class. And starting us off, we have 1d10 per hit points per level, which is fantastic. This will help to keep you in the fight going on and outlasting your enemies. Then, for skill ranks, you get 4 plus your intelligence modifier per level. Now, even with our negative intelligence decreasing this somewhat, if you go with being a human, then you're going to get an extra skill point at character creation and 1 per level afterwards, which does offset this. And given that we don't have a whole lot of skills and a very small selection of skills that we're actually going to focus on to any high degree, you're going to have enough to get through things, mitigating that penalty to intelligence. However, if you do decide to play a dwarf where you're taking a penalty to your charisma, then it's probably worthwhile to swap around intelligence and charisma in that instance. Just because you're taking a hit to your charisma anyways, you may as well try to get the most out of your intelligence to have those extra skill points to really make those other skills shine. especially if you're going to lean into being a face and have to overcome those charisma penalties. Now, going on from that, for your saves, you have a good fortitude save, but poor reflex and will saves. Now, I've come around on fortitude saves. They're actually fairly worthwhile to have, but the reflex saves hurt, literally, and will saves metaphorically, but definitely in much worse ways than the reflex save ever will. Will saves are what make you vulnerable to illusion magics, mind control, things like that, and having you turn your deadly array of weapons against your allies will be absolutely devastating towards any party's cohesion. So, definitely something to keep in mind. Now, for your proficiencies, you're proficient with light, medium armor, heavy armor, and shields, which pairs nicely with that 1d10 hit points and will help to keep you in the fight, surviving everything and wading through the enemy and breaking up them upon you like a tide on the shoreline. Now, for your weaponry, you have access to all martial weapons, katana, wakizashi, and naginata. While there's still some other options I might throw in there myself, this is still going to hold you over pretty well, and most of the samurai weapons fall within the martial weapon category anyway. So Yari is just a spear. It's just a kind of spear, and Yari was just sort of the catch-all word for all the different kinds of spears that you might see, generally. But anyways, one other thing to bear in mind, at least from a thematic roleplay standpoint, the samurai weren't really big on shields. However, we're not playing traditional historical samurai, but if that is something you want to lean into, that might be something you neglect and leave off to the side. However, the kinds of heavy armor available to you should make up for that pretty reliably. Now, getting onto the class abilities, at level 1 we pick up Challenge. Once a day, pick a target in sight. Melee attacks deal extra damage equal to your samurai level, which is going to be great. Scales, that's awesome. Keeps this ability useful throughout most of your campaign. However, it hurts at early levels because you will take a -2 penalty to your armor class against all other targets, other than the one you selected for your challenge. And all of these effects remain until combat ends, or the target is dead or unconscious. You get one more use every 3 levels after first, stopping at +7 at level 19. So, you can see what the issue here is. One is that this only works for melee attacks, and 2, the your bonuses and the penalties remain until the target is dead or unconscious. So it's limited in its use, and because you can't use this with ranged weapons, which is just a damn shame because, again, like I mentioned before, samurai were first and foremost, for most of their history, all the way up through till the end, depending on the clan you looked at, were archers, and they were preeminent, almost you could even say peerless archers for their time period in the region they lived in. They were very, very damn good. But you can't do that with this ability, and that'd be the first thing I homebrew, is allowing this to apply to ranged attacks. Moving on from there, also at first level, you gain a mount that works like a druid's animal companion, using your level as the druid level, which is great. No penalties there for you, not like the ranger. However, medium and small samurai select different rideable mounts and don't take armor check penalties when making ride checks on this mount. The mount begins play with the light armor proficiency as a bonus feat and is combat trained. If the mount dies, however, after 1 week of mourning, the samurai may find another mount. All of this new mount's special abilities will not be in effect until after the samurai levels up. Now, that is a little bit of a hiccup there, but that's easy enough to overcome. All the way around, this is great because mounts and animal companions are great companions to have in the midst of a fight. Sure, it's not like having a whole nother character sheet at your beck and call, but it is still an animal companion, so it's going to be a cut above most other animals of its variety. Horses and camels make for pretty solid, stocky, reliable creatures, and if you're a small samurai, options like wolves bring their own kinds of utility as well. So you have some interesting options, if not the most diverse and interesting array. However, DMs do have the leeway to allow other mount options. So check with your DM, see what's available. You're probably not going to get to go too crazy, but given that it's a fantasy game, something other than a horse or camel would be pretty interesting. Now, another ability that you get at first level is an order that you have to select. You select an order to pledge yourself to in order to gain bonuses, class skills, and special abilities. Each order, however, has edicts that samurai must follow. Violating them loses you the benefit of your challenge ability, which is a significant hit, and that does kind of lock you in a little bit, but given the number of different orders that you have available to you, you're going to find something that fits how you want to roleplay your character, and most orders are at least going to yield you some kind of benefit, a boon, a bonus that will be useful to you. It's just a question of which ones are going to be most useful, at least from the rules and mechanics kind of standpoint, which again, we'll cover that next episode along with feats. Now, the next ability that you get also at first level is Resolve. Usable once a day, plus 1 use every 2 levels after first. The samurai also regains 1 use of Resolve after defeating the target of their challenge. They may choose from one of the following effects. Determined, standard action to spend 1 resolve to remove fatigued, shaken, or sickened. Then at 8th level, they may remove the exhausted, frightened, nauseated, or staggered conditions. If these last for more than 1 hour or are permanent, then using this resolve ability removes it for 1 hour. After that 1 hour time limit is up, the effect resumes as normal until it runs its course, or, well, sticks around if it's permanent. So this is a great way to remove some debuffs from yourself, but the only real disadvantage I see to this ability is that a lot of these are fortitude save oriented, and you already have a good fortitude save, so you're probably going to be passing the DCs for most of these. However, if you do fail, this isn't a bad option to have in your back pocket if you have the extra resolve for it. But the next option is Resolute. On a fortitude or will save, spend 1 resolve as an immediate action to roll twice and take the better result. However, you must declare that you're using this before making the roll. Now, this is a great way to shore up your will save, or at least to give you a slightly better chance at passing. Just bear in mind, we don't have a bonus from our will save or from our wisdom score, and our will saves are terrible. So unless you have a way of bolstering that further, you may still not quite make it. However, it's still great to have this as an option, because will saves are devastating. Then we have Unstoppable. When at 0 or fewer hit points but not dead, use an immediate action to spend a resolve to stabilize and regain consciousness. You'll be staggered, but take no damage when taking a standard action, which, I don't know, might be handy for downing a potion, getting a little bit closer to somebody that can heal you, or if you think you've got a shot, take the opportunity to try to make whatever dropped you dead. So, moving on from there, at 3rd level you pick up Weapon Expertise. Select the katana, longbow, naginata, or wakizashi. You can draw the selected weapon as a free action, per the quick draw feat, and gain a +2 bonus to confirm critical hits. Samurai levels count as fighter levels and stack, so overall this is really great on the surface of it, and, well, heck, even despite some of the issues I'm going to talk about, this actually is pretty nice. However, I probably would have just given somebody the quick draw feat. That's probably what I would have done, or said that this counts as the quick draw feat but is limited to just a selected weapon. The +2 to confirm critical hits is nice, especially if any of the weapons the weapons do have expanded critical threat ranges. Katana's 19 to 20 times 2, same for the wakizashi, not bad, and with the keen option you can expand that further. The fact that the samurai levels count as fighter levels and stack is nice because even though fighters are not a highly regarded class in terms of mechanics, they do have options that synergize really well with the samurai. And the fact that you're not missing out on attack bonus, you get a whole array of extra feats and other class abilities that boost your physical combat capabilities is pretty nice. But, you know, it still has its issues, and again, there's the fact that if you pick the longbow, which is something that the samurai would do and is appropriate, thematic, and on point, you're still missing out on the bonuses that your challenge ability provide, unless your DM has homebrewed it. So this is an instance where the class abilities don't synergize quite as fully or as well as they could or should. However, if you pick the katana or naginata, that works out pretty nicely there. The next ability also faces the same lack of synergy issue. It's Mounted Archer, coming in at 4th level. You only take a -2 penalty on ranged attacks as your mount takes a double move, or a -4 when the mount is running. So a reduction on those attack penalties is pretty nice, especially since they can really add up, and especially if you're using any combat archery feats that throw on more penalties, it's great to have options that reduce that. However, again, challenge doesn't work with ranged attacks, so you're really going to hamstring yourself if you're only allowed to play this basic version, this standard in-book as written version of the samurai. I would homebrew the hell out of this class, especially to make archery and mounted combat archery much more viable for my players. It doesn't do a whole lot to throw the balance out of whack either, to open this up as an option that synergizes these abilities together. But going on from there to good abilities, we have Banner, kicking in at 5th level. For allies within 60 feet that can see it, your banner provides a +2 morale bonus on saves versus fear, which isn't bad, a +1 morale bonus on attack rolls for charging at 10th level and every 5 levels after. These bonuses increase by +1. The banner must at least be small or larger, and this fits. It's thematic, it's fitting for the samurai from historical context. They would wear their banners mounted onto the backs of their armor. It absolutely fits. However, these bonuses they're not bad, but they're not great either. In particular, the morale bonus on attack rolls for charging. Not a lot of your allies are really going to be worried about charging in most instances. However, this other option that is available to the samurai is Fleet Standard. Increase allies' land speed by 5 feet, and provide a +1 dodge bonus to AC in any round they moved at least 10 feet. At 10th level and every 5 levels after, the bonus speed increases by 5 feet. At 14th level, allies gain a +2 reflex bonus versus area effects. When the Cavalier waves the standard, allies can move their speed as an immediate action, which triggers that +1 dodge bonus to AC, which is going to be great. Your allies are absolutely going to love you for this. This gives you a lot of tactical options through positioning, enhancing movement and the like, allowing rogues or rangers or vigilantes to get into flanking positions to allow your squishier allies like wizards or sorcerers or summoners to get out of the way, to retreat from the thick of the fighting. Absolutely a much more superior option, and this has some great defensive bonuses too. Bonuses to dodge bonuses to AC, reflex bonuses, that's great. Now, at 6th level, you get a bonus feat, a bonus combat feat, and at 6th level and every 6 levels after, so 12, 18, and then you're done. Not great that you only get 3, but you know what? We're not going to turn our noses up at 3 extra combat feats, and bear in mind, your samurai levels now count as fighter levels, so that opens up some really nice options for you. Then at 9th level, we have Greater Resolve. After a crit is confirmed on the samurai, they may spend 1 use of Resolve as an immediate action to make it a normal hit. Effects that trigger on crit don't activate when the samurai uses this ability, so take Vorpal Swords. Easiest example I could think of. On a critical hit, they typically decapitate the target. If you activate this ability, it's a normal hit. The decapitation no longer happens with the Vorpal Blade, and any other effects that might trigger on a critical hit are negated likewise. So definitely massively useful, and any extra effects, reduced damage, definitely makes you very tanky, very survivable. Now, at 11th level, you pick up Honorable Stand. As a swift action, you become immune to shaken, frightened, and panicked conditions, and you don't fall unconscious at 0 or fewer hit points. All of those are great. However, the one part of this ability that gives us a little bit of a hang-up is when making a save, you can spend 1 resolve to roll again after making the save roll, taking the second roll even if it's worse. Now, this is okay. This will work out great for fortitude saves, not so much for reflex saves because you have a poor reflex save and we're not boosting our dexterity all that much. And then for your wisdom saving throws, your will saves, this is not going to make it's nice, but at the same, you're rolling twice and taking the better result, but well, actually, you're rolling twice and taking the next result, even if it's worse. That is pretty rough. And from what I'm seeing here, looking at this, your resolve options to let you roll twice to take the better result don't seem like they apply here in this instance when you're using Honorable Stand. However, check with your DM. If they rule that yes, you can use the 2 abilities in conjunction, then fantastic. This opens things up pretty nicely for you. However, that's not my read on it, so definitely take the time to check. Also, bear in mind that if you retreat from the target of your challenge, you lose the use of this ability for 24 hours afterwards. This is usable once a day, plus 1 extra use at 16th level, so you're only going to get to use this twice in a given day. However, if you're having to use this twice in a given day, things have probably gone a bit sideways. Now, the next ability is Demanding Challenge at 12th level. As long as your challenge target is within your threatened area, it takes a -2 penalty on attacks from anyone other than the samurai. So, that's not bad, but by 12th level, your opponents have a whole host of other options for making themselves more defensible that are not reliant on armor class bonuses, and even then they're not taking a penalty against you, just against your allies, which again, not bad. That is helpful, but it's not as helpful as it could be, and while it might be, again, thematic, feels kind of appropriate, you're presenting that much of a threat, demanding that kind of a challenge from your opponent to get their focus solely on you. It's limited by your threatened area. That's at most 10 feet if you're using a polearm. So, yeah, not a great ability. Not bad, it does have an effect. It is helpful, but not as helpful as it could be. Then at 14th level, you gain Greater Banner, which is helpful. Allies within 60 feet receive a +2 morale bonus on saving throws versus charm and compulsion effects, all reliant on will saves. The samurai, forgot to fix that, can use a standard action and grant allies in 60 feet an extra saving throw versus any one effect targeting them. Allies can't benefit more than once from this effect per day. However, this is still great. Absolutely a superior ability all the way around. Every samurai will be absolutely better for having this, and your allies will love you for it. Then, at 17th level, we pick up True Resolve. As long as you have 2 uses remaining, spend all remaining uses of Resolve to avoid death, regardless of the source. Now, the samurai will be at -1 hit points or lower, but stable, unconscious, and still alive. Absolutely a great ability to have, though you will have options for getting yourself back up and in the fight that may be at your fingertips. Not every samurai will have them necessarily, and still having this there means that you will keep alive, and good DMs can, if it fits the story at least, can have campaigns take, or at least player actions carry on even after death, have little role-playing gaming scenarios there, but not dying is still useful for any adventurer. And lastly, we have Last Stand at 20th level, and this is probably one of the poorer Capstone abilities I've gotten to read up on. When using Challenge, melee and ranged attacks deal minimum damage unless the attack is a crit. You remain conscious and avoid the staggered condition when below 0 hit points and can't be killed unless struck by the target of your challenge. Now, all of that sounds really great. I mean, you know, not as great as it could be, but not bad either. So what's the issue with this? Well, the issue is that this has no effect on spells, environmental effects, supernatural abilities, or any effects for that matter outside of melee and ranged attacks. Now, this lasts until the challenge ends, or the samurai takes offensive action against anyone other than the target of their challenge. So, you can see why that gets to be pretty bad. The samurai has, by level 20, the number of spells, supernatural abilities, just everything that can come down on you, even just the natural environmental effects. Somebody collapses a rock wall on you by using Disintegrate on the wall. That's going to deal damage to you, and that's going to kill you. That's going to drop, well, potentially kill you or drop you, and you're vulnerable to all of that still. I mean, there's so many ways of getting around that. It's just not even funny. It's a terrible Capstone ability. And that's the thing with the samurai. There's lots of good ideas here. There's lots of good abilities, but the synergy between them all, with the exception of, I'd say, the banner abilities kind of stack together pretty nicely there. The samurai is a bit of a mess of good ideas and a couple of bad ones that don't do as much as they should, in part because of the synergy. Now, most campaigns do not get to level 20, so the Capstone ability is probably not going to come up and be that much of an issue, but if you're playing in an epic level campaign or you get to that point, I would seriously talk to your DM about using alternate Capstone abilities or homebrewing the hell out of this one, because this is bad. I mean, just the fact that you lose the benefits of this ability by attacking anybody other than the target of your challenge. The one thing that I would homebrew there, although maybe with treading carefully, is that as long as you are making your way to the target of your challenge, say that classic cinematic scene where the samurai or, you know, some other such character is fighting and carving their way through a horde of minions, trying to work their way and fight and kill and just stack bodies to climb up and over to get at the actual target they are challenging. As long as a player is doing that, I would say they don't lose the benefits of this ability. That'd be the first thing I'd homebrew. Again, making it clear that the player has to actually be making their way to the target, but as long as they're doing that, they don't lose the benefits of this ability, and that just adds to it all the way around right there. I think it stays on point for the themes and the feel of that cinematic samurai. It builds into all of that, and it makes the Capstone ability a lot more useful. Well, not a lot more useful, but at least you're not losing the benefits of it against melee and ranged attacks. You're still kind of screwed with everything else. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know either way, and remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.